Hey, I'm Steve from Within the Ruins, and this is Brutal Planet.
Hello, this is Ron Bumblefoot Thal of Sons of Apollo, and welcome to Brutal Planet Magazine.
This is Mike Howe from Metal Church, and welcome to Brutal Planet.
This is Livia Graham from Lipsing, and welcome to Brutal Planet Magazine.
This is Hulk Hoffman of Video. Welcome to Brutal Planet Magazine.
Hey, this is JT from Syra, and welcome to Brutal Planet Magazine.
Hey, this is Nick Reese from Joyous Wolf, and this is Brutal Planet Magazine.
We are Thunder Mother, and welcome to Brutal Planet Magazine.
Tom Banglund here. Just want to welcome you guys to Brutal Planet Magazine.
Kevin from the Heavy Metal Shop. Welcome to Brutal Planet. Hello, Metalheads. My name is Patrick Johansson, known from Lions Hair and House of Doors. Welcome to Brutal Planet Magazine.
Greetings and salutations, Brutal Planet. We are here live today with Roger LeBlanc from a band called G.U.S.H. And I had just heard of you guys recently. Do you guys have do you have a full-length album out yet?
Not yet. It's our first one.
Man, I gotta say, I listened to your singles and I was very impressed. I really dig the song Down the Drain. The guitar sounds incredible. I'm a guitar player, so
JCM 800, baby.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
but the guitar sound on that song when the guitars bust in is just so huge, and
massive.
And that immediately pulled me in. So
that's Josh, like Josh Schrader, the producer I worked with. Like his heavy hitters are like Lorna Shore, King 810, like these massive sounding fucking bands, right? And I had worked with Josh before. I used to be in a band called Numenorian. And we had done two bands. It was like post-black metal. We had done two albums with him prior. The first album he had just mixed and mastered. And the second, we actually went out to Michigan. He's got this beautiful house in the woods. And we were out there for like a month, more than a month. And I knew I wanted to work with him. And this was like the perfect person for it. Because the thing with like a lot of music like this, I found was kind of lacking in production was the kind of like beefier sounding guitars.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is the guy for sure. And so we spent like 3 days just finding guitar tones. Like we used everything. We used like the Boss Heavy Metal pedal, which has got that like chainsaw. Yeah. And I was like,
Boss Metal Zone.
Yeah. Pedals I would never thought I would use in like a grunge band, But no, I'm super excited with how those guitars turned out. Just like, and it's so simple. Like we didn't do a lot of takes. Like it's just stereo, maybe one or two on each side. And yeah, he's a wizard. He's a fucking wizard. I love that guy.
Joy and simplicity.
Yeah, 100%.
I think like the style of music you guys are doing too. When I read the press release, it's kind of a throwback to grunge, is what you guys are kind of billing yourselves as, which I think is actually kind of needed right now, because someone brought up a great point. I think it was someone I interviewed, but they said the grunge era was the last time that rock bands dominated the charts.
Yeah.
And music today, there's a lot of bands out there that I love. There's a lot of great bands, but so much of it is so overproduced. Yeah. It sounds so mechanical and computerized and like on the linear time grid. And so I always appreciate when I hear some stuff like what you guys are putting out, which is a lot more just raw rock and roll.
Because my band, when the black metal band ended, I was like, I don't really want to do metal anymore, but I still want to do emotional music. Like I'm always super drawn to emotionally charged music, which a lot of those bands were. It wasn't about like your technical prowess, although a lot of those you kind of have to be a good musician to know when to do the least amount possible. And that's what people like Kurt Cobain, Alice in Chains, a lot of those bands are so good at that. There's no artistic bullshit. It's like, it's to the point. I'm sitting here, here's a song, I'm having a conversation with you. There's no middleman. I mean, yeah, having good production helps, but even like a lot of my favorite albums from that time, a lot of it was like off the floor. Like a lot of shit in utero is like off the floor. There's no click. There's no like it's and that's the closest you can get to like a live performance. And that's what was so good about those bands. It's like, yeah, simple guitar driven tracks that you can immediately get. Like that was the huge change from going from like post black metal fucking 12-minute songs to like, you know, doing a song that, you know, sometimes I would limit myself. I'd be like, this song can be no longer than 3.5 minutes. That's the challenge.
That can be a challenge on its own. It's funny because I used to play in bands, and I recently remixed a band that I played in like years ago when I was in my teen years.
Oh, cool.
And I realized in the process of that, we had these songs, and I'm like, why did we do this part for like, like we don't need to do. So I cut the music down when I remixed it. I was like, no, like this doesn't need to go on this long.
Yeah.
But if you had told me that when I was a kid, I would have been like, fuck you.
Fuck you, man. This is my artist integrity. Fuck you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like 90s music in general was kind of the last, like you were pointing out, there was kind of the last sort of decade / movement where, yeah, it was like the biggest bands were shit like, you know, like what's that track by like bands like Lit or like Butch, or, you know, these were just people playing in bands. There was no like real gimmick. There was nothing else to help sell. Like even in metal, there's a lot of gimmicks and a lot of like theatrics. And you know, like people like Kurt Cobain was like, no, you know,
they blew the lid off that.
And they were just like hair metal that had been ruling for so long, fucking just dismantled as soon as it Smells Like Teen Spirit. Dismantled. Completely. The entire genre was gone.
That era is crazy too, because I had this conversation with someone the other day about, so around the same time that Nevermind came out, Metallica's Black Album came out, which was also a kind of a fuck you to the hair metal thing, because that was Metallica's entire MO. But someone brought up this point about how during that era, all these like heavy thrash bands like Anthrax, Metallica, you know, Exodus made like mainstream albums, sort of like Metallica did the Black Album, Anthrax had Sound of White Noise, Exodus had Force of Habit, Testament had The Ritual, Megadeth did Countdown to Extinction, and
shit, that's right.
Yeah, so it was like someone in the comments said that, and I was like, wow, I never thought about that. I'm gonna have to like do a video on that or something, because that's crazy. But it really was. And that music too is still so beloved, you know, by people like me who grew up with it, but then also a new generation of people.
It's taking those pop influences too, I find. You know, in the 90s, they really leaned into it. Like, yeah, we're rock bands, we're metal bands, but what happens when we take that? I mean, I don't want to say formulaic, because that can have a negative connotation to it.
Sure.
But to take those like elements of pop music, hooks, huge hooks, like repetition, quiet to heavy on the choruses, you know, things like that was like, bands like Metallica were like, I think there's something here that we can take and utilize and steal and put into metal music and make it and bring it really to a whole other level. I mean, you don't want to say it's better. I mean, that's subjective. But it really brings it into a whole new world where you're like, holy shit, I never thought I could hear, you know, even like a band, like, I don't know if you've heard of a band called Spectral Wound. They're awesome. Like if you like old school Leviathan style, like one man black metal bands, so good. But even in his music, I've noticed, holy shit, this section is pop. Like it's fucking shrill, cold black metal, but it's verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, big chorus at the end. And it just, it grounds you. And like, it's just science. Like your brain is like, I feel comfortable with this. I know what's coming next. And that's what releases your endorphins. And that's what makes pop music so impactful in that sense.
Yeah. I was watching a podcast the other day where they were talking about the power that music has. I think it was Tommy Lee actually on Bill Maher.
Oh, nice.
On his Basement podcast. And Tommy made a great point. He said something about, he's like, music, like it's so powerful because people attach emotions to it. And it's like what you're saying too. It's kind of like a band like Metallica, as great as an album like Master of Puppets or And Justice for All is, the average radio listener is never going to grasp that. So it's almost like they had to kind of condense their sound a little bit to reach a wider audience too.
Yeah. Like even look at a band like Slipknot. Now there's a band that's like able, because like Corey Taylor's he's a pop star at heart.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's and he's fucking incredible at a lot he does.
It's amazing.
Oh yeah. But even look at like their self-titled album.
It's got hooks.
Like dude, like Wait and Bleed? Are you kidding me? That is like a fucking pop anthem.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
It's brilliant. But if you were to take that, and I could be wrong here, Dustin, but did they not at that time they had like the album version, and then there was a version that was on like MTV that was like mostly clean singing.
Yep. They had a clean, like a softer version, like a clean vocal version, basically.
Okay, so I'm not tripping out. But that's like, okay, how do we get an audience, a mainstream audience on board with this? Because if you go back and you listen to that whole album, like mainstream songs, maybe you got two, like Spit It Out is kind of catchy too.
Yeah.
But dude, that album is fucking brutal, but it's a hook to get you in, right? Like, because no one would listen to that album and be like, yes, I'm going to buy this. But you hear a song like Wait and Bleed and you're like, fuck, I got to check this out. So you have that like one thing that hooks people into your music, right? And they were so good at that.
Oh, I mean, that's a band that I have so much respect for, and it's great. They are kind of like the Metallica of their generation, really. Like
easily, they're huge, they're massive,
totally.
And like another band, like my favorite band of all time, they're Nevada's Deftones, and that's like Slipknot, a band that consistently changes their sound every single album, but you know it's them because they're so comfortable with who they are as artists. It's not about, okay, I'm going to make a Metallica album part 3. It's like, no, we're fucking artists. Let's take our influences. Let's take Kirk's fucking horror movie influences. Let's put it all together and see what happens. And like, those are the kind of bands that have success because they're constantly changing who they are. And that like with this, like I just like, I can't do post black metal anymore. It'd be like, you'd be forcing yourself at that point. Yeah. As much as I love it, you got to like, and that I remember having this conversation with myself, sitting down and be like, you got to find the songs and the music that made you fall in love with music. Because there was always something that came before finding that first Slipknot album. And I was like, well, what was it? What were those songs that kind of like got me to fall in love with the idea of creating music? And sure, like if I was to make a playlist of the songs that I'm like, yeah, these are my go-tos, people would be like, what the fuck? Like Carly Rae Jepsen and like all these bands who are like, I'm always trying to steal things from people, you know, whether it is a band like Spectral Wound or like Enya or I don't know, Rush, you know, like if I'm listening to these bands, I'm like, oh, I could take that. Oh, I could take that. Oh, I could take that. And when you start to like, be like, I can make music that's just based off like who I am as a person, not off of a genre or not off of, you know, a sound like, because like I was saying, Josh Schrader, the producer, he works with a lot of bands that are like, you know, metalcore and genres I'm not really into, but you know, I can imagine being someone who's had success with a band like Lorna Shore, the amount of people that reach out to you who are just like, hey, you did the Lorna Shore album. Can you do my album so we sound exactly the same?
Yeah.
Like that to me is just like so fucking crazy because I couldn't do that. You've got to have like, and this is going back to those bands in the 90s, is there was like this sense of like, this is who I am. I'm not going to put on a fucking costume for you. These are songs about depression and addiction. And like, why the fuck would I put on a huge production for that? It's not that. It's punk rock. It's me, it's a band, and it's you, and that's it. And that's what that music, again, like going back to like the heavy hitters like Kurt Cobain and stuff. Like when you sat down and listened to those albums when you're like 12, crying, writing your diary or journal, you feel like he's talking to you. And that's what a lot of those bands were. It was like they invited you into their fucking jam space, and that was it. You're in their jam space, you close your eyes, you smoke a J, and you just fucking enjoy it. And that's what's so powerful, again, about those kinds of music from the 90s. And why that hasn't come back is surprising to me. Because, like, what would be the biggest rock band post-Nirvana?
Yeah, we've talked about this a few times. It's like Shinedown, like Muse, maybe like
Muse, Radiohead, but they're not. But they like after the Bends were like,
yeah,
there's only so many Pixies. I'm pretty sure the guitar said that. He's like, there's only so many Pixies riffs you can fucking steal before, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's always curious. Like I wonder why. Even a band like I don't know if you've heard a band called Super Heaven.
I've heard the name, but I haven't listened to them. No.
Pretty grungy, but they came out with albums like holy shit, like 8 years ago. And now they're just starting to pick up because, you know, with TikTok and stuff, I feel like this kind of, you know, like a decade ago, it was all about 80s. It was like synths. And that's when Perturbator came out and was fucking huge. Should be because he's fucking amazing. But I feel like
live actually,
dude, just like you can understand why he plays metal festivals. It's just so fucking grim. It's good.
Yeah, it's like the 80s vaporwave, like Blade Runner shit.
Yeah, and that was huge. Like it was huge a few years ago, and I feel like that's just what we do, that nostalgia kick. And it's not even people like us who kind of went through that decade. It is younger people who were like, the 90s seems fucked. Like the 90s is so fucked. Watch any toy commercial. You know what I mean? Like they are fucking crazy. So I think there is kind of that yearning for that, whatever that decade was. And I'm hoping that kind of, what's that? Sorry?
The nostalgia.
Yes. Yeah. And nostalgia's huge, right? Like it's such an important part to the human condition. It's like where all our memories are and everything, right? So I really do hope that this kind of puts those sort of artists back into, you know, they don't have to be to the front like Nirvana was, but I feel like there is kind of a craving for no bullshit, just
no frills.
Yeah, just fucking rock and roll, man. Like just songs that talk about real shit, and you don't really have to think a ton about. Like a lot of riffs on this album are so simple and like simple, but like you got, again, like going back to like, you have to know, you were talking about mixing that song, like you have to know when to take away. And that's again, that's edit. Yeah. And that's, I remember hearing a quote about, it was like a Swedish architect in the 1700s or some shit. And he's like, amazing architects know when they're done, not when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away. And that kind of, that kind of always stuck with me. Like, yeah, it's true. And even in the studio, like some of the songs, like Down the Drain, the jam part near the end was almost twice as long. And there was like this crazy fucking bass fill. And I was like, yo, this is sick. But then like after listening to it a while, it's like, do we really need this? Because if you give people what they want in that song, there's no need to go back and listen to it again and be like, fuck, that part's really cool. I want to hear it again because it feels too short.
So I got to tell you something about that song specifically. I was listening to it, and the hook is catchy, and I know a song's good if I'm singing it in my head, like a couple days later.
Yeah.
And I was like, this reminds me of something, but I cannot fucking put my finger on what it is. And it hit me yesterday. Have you ever heard of a band called The Flies?
No.
They have this song called "Got You Where I Want You." They're like a one-hit wonder.
Yeah, got you where I want you.
Yeah.
I
think you're smart.
Yeah, killer.
I was like, that's a great fucking song. I went and dug the song
it's
up.
So good.
And I mean, it's not that your song sounds like that, but it has tones of that I was like, maybe part of the melody is similar or something. I'm like, what does that remind me of? And so already it's serving its purpose. But I also got to say, like, I think I viewed your band through the lens of like grunge noir type stuff because I got the press release that describes you that way. I think the average person, when they hear it, they'll just go, wow, that's a good rock song.
Which is awesome because that's like even my niece who's 14, she even likes this stuff. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, before I sent it to her, I'm like, this might be like some millennial dad rock. Like, I'm so sorry ahead of time. But she's like, no, this is fucking awesome. And it's like, she's like, do you have any other music like this? And I was like, oh shit, just wait. Here's the fucking playlist. We got like, yeah, man, like it's really cool to be able to like, with a project like this, yes, allow people like ourselves to be like, fuck, man, I miss when music was like this. But also new people to be like, fuck, I got to find these old bands. Like I'm sure most people know who Nirvana are, but even bands like Hum. Like, I don't know if you know the band Hum.
That's another band. Yeah. I totally thought of them when I heard you guys stuff.
Oh, I love. We were actually going to cover Stars for that album, but I was like, Josh was like, the thing with covers, Roger, is like if a song is good,
yeah,
it doesn't really need a cover. But if you can like bring something to it, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if we could bring like, other than being drop tuned, I didn't know if there was something we could really bring to that to really make it like a whole new thing. But yeah, that's another band that was like, even they had some exposure, but that's a band that I thought would have been like way more up there. They were kind of like Weezer in a sense, you know, that kind of like,
it's heavy, but it's heavy
reserved,
guitar, but
vocally reserved.
Like, yeah.
That's another fucking amazing, like the Blue Album. Get out of here. There's actually this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dustin.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's I don't know if you've heard the like conspiracy theory that like it's like Kurt Cobain didn't die. He just like retired and wrote the Blue Album.
I mean, his fingerprints are definitely all over Hole's stuff.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of other. I didn't know. I saw this thing the other day that the Melvins hired him to produce their Houdini record, and they had to fire him because he was too strung out.
Yes, I watched that interview with Buzzo, was talking about it, and like, yeah, and he's like, that's the most fucked up thing. Is like he was even saying like when they were in the studio, it wasn't like it was the executives who were giving him the drugs. It was the executives who were like, here, Kurt, like, here, you can get through this, take this, you know, like just that's what Buzzo was like, totally anti-music industry, right? Like, because he saw firsthand what
killed Kurt.
Oh yeah, dude, like
they tried to kill Motley Crue, but it just didn't.
No. How do you kill something that doesn't have a liver? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, how do you kill something that's already dead?
Yeah. Keith Richards is like laughing.
Yeah, dude, he's a fucking mummy. I don't know how he's still alive. Guinness Book of World Records.
Yeah, it's amazing though. I was laughing the other day because I made this analogy. You know, politics aside, like I was like, Joe Biden is like in his 80s and the guy can barely string a sentence together, and Willie Nelson is 90 and still touring. So,
and he smoked weed his whole life. So like, where's the, you know, that fucking Reagan? It's gonna ruin your fucking life. But then look at Biden, who knows what drugs he's on. But like, I watched his like press conference come up on YouTube, and I'm just like, it's like he's just a fucking puppet. Like he's not alive. It's just like there's someone under there with fucking sticks. Like
the empire has no clothes at this point.
Yeah, dude. And he's in charge of so many nukes. It's like, oh my god.
But is he though? Like that's the thing. I'm like,
that's
he's in charge of shit. He's just the guy they put on TV.
Fuck, dude. Yeah. Grunge will save the world.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it. Canada and U.S. unite. There's some crazy shit going on in Canada too.
Oh yeah, it's everywhere, right? Like it's everyone's just so fucking fed up with like everything.
Yeah,
like I think COVID was big for that. Like people were like, what we're doing isn't working, and that just kind of snowballed. And everyone's like, yeah, I don't feel like I should work fucking 7 days a week for minimum wage just to feed myself. Like that's fucked. And like my main source of income is film and television. And so we've been on strike now for fucking months and months. And it's just to have like, to not be replaced by robots. Like, is that so much to fucking ask? You know what I mean? But these, even like the executives, one came out and was like, well, we'll just hold out until they lose their homes. It's like, that's what you're up against.
Yeah. Are you based in Southern California?
No, I'm in Alberta.
Oh, okay.
Which is a big filming hub in Canada.
Gotcha.
But because
I'm in LA, so the strike thing has been very.
Oh, dude! Like at least the writers got, and I'm hoping like that'll expedite things. Like you know, like the actors can be like, "Well, you fucking gave them this."
Yeah.
You can't just like, and I heard that something like Netflix lost the amount of money that Netflix has lost because of the lack of new content would have already paid for everything everyone's asking for.
it's like the thing that's so crazy to me about the political situation is it's been this way as long as I can remember. And it's like people aren't asking for much. Like all you rich fools can keep your fucking empires and your yachts and stuff. Like just give us healthcare.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you don't have that problem in Canada, but
well, the thing now is like they're trying to dismantle it in Canada.
Yeah.
So now it's like, oh,
probably
you can
US influence.
Yes, 100%. You can come into the hospital. It'll be free, but you have to wait 12 hours. Or you can get a private and just get, streamlined right through it. So now everyone's like, well, I don't want to wait 12 hours. So they're pulling people into the privatized sector of that, right? So it's scary. And that's the thing with like American politics is a lot of it comes up to Canada. So like in Alberta is very much like this really shitty attitude of like, we're the Texas of Canada. It's like, that's not something to be proud of, you guys. like it's the mentality is so wrong. And so like the problems that arise with that kind of thinking.
There's got to be a middle of the road because I'm one of those people who, I've always considered myself, to the left. I'm very, open-minded. Like you do your thing as long as you're not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
But COVID definitely changed my perspective a lot because a lot of people moved to Texas, and I'm big into comedy.
Yeah.
And the Austin comedy scene has totally been lit up because of guys like Joe Rogan and Tony Hinchcliffe and stuff now. And it's like, it's free speech. And it's like, wow, like they've got a cool thing going on there. And, I don't necessarily agree with every last thing that they say, but there's like in the middle of the road, it's like, why can't they do that? Like what, and on the flip side, it's like, I read this thing the other day about how because people are always bragging, oh, but taxes are so much lower in Texas. It's like, yeah, but you pay for it all on the back end even more.
Yeah,
like the cost of living ends up being higher in other ways. So it's like we just need to I think the COVID thing really brought this to the forefront for me. Is it's like I was like, oh, F the right wing and all this stuff. And then I was like, no. Actually, a lot of people on the right have similar views if you talk to them. And if the views aren't similar, when you start communicating, a lot of times you can turn them a little bit. So anyway,
it's true because like I have a brother-in-law who would probably be more like our ideologies don't exactly match up. But like if I was to sit him down and be like, look, I'm pissed off. You're pissed off. We should all be pissed off at the same fucking person. We have to meet each other halfway, get the fucking guillotines out, and work together. You know what I mean? Because otherwise nothing's gonna get done. And that's what they want, right? You guys fight about this. You guys fight about this. We'll be over here making fucking trillions of dollars.
Do you remember Occupy Wall Street?
I do.
So there's a podcaster I watch who he kind of came out of that milieu, I guess, whatever you want to call it. And he was talking the other day about how it was when on the streets of Occupy Wall Street, it was all kinds of people, older people, younger people, left people, right people. And the point when it got divided was when the identity thing came out. It's like that was the thing that divided everyone. They're like, oh, no, the Spanish people over here and the black people over here and the white people over here. And it's like, no, wait a minute. We all have a common interest. Like, why are we siloing ourselves off into these little groups when we just want healthcare? You know, and it's like, and I've seen this transition too with a lot of my more conservative leaning friends where it's like they're to the point where they're like, yeah, we need healthcare. My friend who had insurance went bankrupt when his wife got cancer. Or the COVID thing is the best example to me because the bodily autonomy argument came up. And I'm like, yo, this is a good chance to bring conservatives into the abortion rights thing. Hey, bodily autonomy, my body, my choice. It applies to both the vaccine and baby or an unborn child or whatever you want to call it, reproductive health. So
I was hoping for the same thing. Like you see all those signs of people during COVID, like my body, my choice. And I'm like, yeah, but 2 years ago you were protesting someone who was saying the same fucking thing. Like we all want the same fucking thing.
Yes.
That's to be left alone and just to fucking have a happy little life.
But it gets turned into like a situation where we can dunk on each other. Like, oh, the stupid Trump supporters think that vaccines are not safe. And then it's like, oh, the stupid liberals think they can just kill babies. And it's like, no. These are all personal decisions. People.
Yeah.
Like,
it's so complicated. Things can be two things. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Things can be two things. And that's the thing with like freedom of speech. It's like, yeah, freedom of speech. It's not freedom from consequence.
Exactly.
But you can't prevent someone from saying something. That's like That's some like true speak shit. You know what I mean? Like you can't prevent someone from saying something, but they're not immune from consequence from what they said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the COVID thing too, when we were all locked in our houses and the town square was social media, and it's like all of a sudden now they're like canceling people off that, where it's like you just lost your voice. Like the Facebook and Twitter are the public square now. We're all at home. We can't even they had ridiculous shit here. They had like they took the basketball rims off park basketball hoops, and they had police taped up the parks and shit. So people
that's fucking stupid.
It got ridiculous. But anyway, I wanted to ask you the origin story of your band before.
The origin story. I might have touched on a bit. So I was in a post-black metal band, Numenorian. We were touring. We had started getting a lot of really big traction near there. We were on a label called Season of Mist. And we were set to play Hellfest with Alcest and Gall's Word.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was. Oh, and Watain. Watain was headlining that show.
Damn.
Yeah, dude, it was huge. And we were set to play those festivals. And then it came out that the person I wrote the music with was like not a good person. So I ended that, and I was kind of like super depressed because I was like, oh fuck, I put all this effort into something that was just torn away from me by other people's actions. So I was like, fuck this, I don't want to make music anymore. Just being super dramatic, burnt all my fucking Numenorian merch and shit, just like being a goof. But then I finally sat down and was real with myself, and I was like, I mentioned this before, I was like, okay, you need to get back to the things that inspired you. And like I my first rules were, okay, I'm going to be super patient and compassionate with myself. I'm going to keep these songs simple so I can smoke a joint in rehearsal and don't have to worry about complicated shit anymore.
I like that.
And I have to feel it, and it has to be fun. Like the moment that this stops being fun, I'm not going to do it. And I feel like that comes across in these recordings. It's like you can tell that we're invested in it. You know, you can tell that we're really proud of it, and that it's something that had to be told. And I have
there's emotional character to the music.
Yes, thank you. That's a perfect way of putting it. An emotional character to the music that I knew at the end of the day, that's exactly what I was doing in the post black metal band. Was really running off of my emotional impulses. What the emotional impulses that dictate, you know, going from one riff to the other, you have to feel it. It's not about sonically what sounds good. It has to feel good. And that was another important aspect of starting this band, was like, if there's ever a moment when we're jamming a song or playing a song and we're like, then let's just fucking get rid of it. Let's just make shit that sounds good, that a bunch of people can get into a room and just fucking have fun. No concepts, none of that shit. And I also really wanted it to be personal. You know, I really wanted it to be, because I'm bipolar and I'm a suicide survivor, and I wanted to be able to have a platform to talk about those things. Because still, even in 2023, it's so difficult for people, especially people who present themselves as male, to talk about those things. And I feel like when you hear songs about that stuff, like, oh shit, someone took the time to be like, hey, let's fucking talk about this. You know, that was another huge goal for me starting this band, was like, I don't want it to be politically charged per se, but I want it to mean something. And I want it to mean something where, after a show, we can have those conversations. We can talk about, you know, losing people to suicide or addiction, or, you know, even just how difficult it is to navigate being, you know, a person in this fucking world. Those were all things that kind of, when I started this, I was like, those have to be in place for me to want to continue to make music. And I feel like I found a really good balance. And working with the producer I did, he kind of just got it. Like, we never really sat down and had conversations about what the songs were about. He got it just from what I was singing about and what I was playing. And I think that in itself speaks to like accomplishing the job I set out to do, which was to just make you immediately get it, you know. And to be able to, like you said, hum the chorus. Like whenever I'm writing music, and again, like I go for a walk, and a day later I'm still humming that part I came up with, then I'm like, okay,
That's
all right, we're onto something here.
Yeah, it's funny what you said earlier about if you don't like the song, if it's kind of meh, you're just like, let's not do that one. I saw this interview with Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age, and he was talking about working with someone, and he's like, I work really hard on each song, and this guy's like, well, Josh, every song can't be your best song, and he's like, why not? And I just thought that was so good.
True.
Yeah,
and
why not?
Why not? But also, why not give it every chance it deserves? Like, why not set every song up for success and not be like, it's like when you finish recording an album and you're like, oh, which one's the single? Because you like them all so much. There's no like clear cut, oh, that's obviously the single that people are going to buy the album, and the rest of these are kind of just, you know, to fill out the other 38 minutes or whatever. Yeah, that's super. And I totally agree with that. It's super interesting that he would say that, because yeah, like, why wouldn't you want every song to, you know, what's a perfect example for an album like that is White Pony, because every song on that album is fucking different. There's an atmospheric song, there's a rock song, there's a fucking new metal song, there's a weird ambient electronic song. Like, when they wrote that album, they weren't like, well, let's write this song and then write 8 metal songs, because that's how people know us. They're like, no, let's treat every song as its own thing and put it together in an album. And it's like one of the best albums I've ever heard in my life.
It's definitely in the pantheon of. Didn't it win a Grammy? I think it won a Grammy.
Yeah, I think it did for Digital Bath. I think
that was like one of my favorite songs on the record too.
Oh, dude, so good. We I'll give me your info after this, and I'll send you the full album, and you can listen. Awesome. There's a couple tracks where, like, we were sitting and we were just like, let's go full Deftones. Like, let's go full fucking Deftones.
Beautiful. So I got to ask you, what does the acronym GUSH stand for?
Oh my God, this is so funny. Okay,
can you say it?
Oh yeah. So I when I went and I recorded this, I was like, GUSH, all capital letters. It's kind of a play off Gish, the Smashing Pumpkins, and also just like gushers, like the idea of like the art. And I was like, I want super 90s high contrast colors. So I go to the studio, record this, all the songs, like the metadata and stuff, it all has this gush in it. I get all the merch made. So I get the logo made, the album cover, everything. And then like 2 weeks before I'm going to upload my music to Spotify, fucking band comes out with the same name. And they're also 90s alternative. And I was like, oh no. So then I was like, I was talking to Josh, and I was like, what the fuck do I do? And he's just like, yeah, make it an acronym. And I was like, yeah, in every interview, I'll just change what it means. Like gastro, underbelly, stupid, hombres. You know, like just change it every fucking interview. Because I was like, I love the name so much, I don't want to let it go.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that.
I wish I had a more
like they're trying to say something deep with this.
Yeah, it's something deep, and that's the I was like, fuck, I should come up with an answer that's like super existential and like politically charged.
Giving Utah some help.
It's because I was too broke to pay for new merch, so I added a couple dots.
That's amazing. That's great. That's great. I love that. Everyone has a different thing too. It's kind of like I love asking these origin stories or band name meanings, because like there's a guy from this band called Derision Cult, and I was like, what does that name mean? And he's like, oh, it's like, you know, the culture of how like, oh, that sucks, so everyone has to deride it, and it's like a cult of people that like just hate things. That's fucking brilliant.
That's cool. Yeah. But then there's other people who are like, my band's name is Necro Death Rot. It's like, well, where'd you get that name? And he's like, D&D.
From the back of like a fucking Cannibal Corpse record.
Yeah. Playing Diablo or some shit. Yeah.
That's the climate right now.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Well, yeah, I would love to hear the full record. When does the record come out to the public?
No, November 10th.
November 10th?
November 10th is the official release date. And I'll have like some vinyl and some digipacks and stickers and stuff. I got like some really cool holographic stickers made, because I remember in the 90s there would always be those like gumball machines that had those holographic stickers in them. like X-Men, or like the one I always comes to my mind is it was a cat. I don't know if you remember those. It was like a cat face, and they were always super sparkly. Yeah, I was like, fuck, I need to get some
have
of those.
one that's a see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. It's like a glitter, like one of those glitter, but it has the skeletons with their mouths
so
covered
cool.
and their ears covered and their eyes covered.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
I have a bunch of that shit stashed in boxes somewhere. So
yeah, what's your email? Or I guess I should wait till.
Yeah, I'll send it to you in the chat.
Yeah.
We can when we end the stream too, we can talk a little bit more.
Okay, great.
So not that people can't find it if they want to. I mean, I talk to bands like every day, so
yeah,
I'm open to bands reaching out to us too. But
cool, awesome.
So another question I like to ask, and we already kind of touched on this a little bit, but what are you listening to right now? Aside from 90s alternative, maybe.
Well, let's see. I'm gonna bring up my new inspiration playlist. What do we got here? Okay, we got some Bloodhound Gang.
Oh, nice.
Some Teenage Wrist. We got here Mannequin Pussy, which is a fucking awesome. Like,
I love the name.
Oh, they're so good. They played at a festival here in the summer. And they're so fucking good. It's a 3-piece, but like really good 90s alternative rock.
Are they Canadian?
No, they're American. I think they're from New York. I could be wrong. They're probably no,
That's
we're from fucking
name.
North Dakota, you idiot.
Failure. There's a lot of great bands that come out of Canada, so
yeah, dude. Failure. Did you ever get into that band Failure?
Yeah. Yep.
Fuck, it's so good.
Homeboy from Troy Van Leeuwen is in Queens of Stone Age now too.
Oh shit! I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Small world. I had never heard that album until I went to record this one, and then I heard it and I was like, "Fuck, this is so good!" Like, there's so many ideas that could have like influenced me from this album, and I was like, kind of mad that, or I felt cheated that this album had not crossed my path before.
It's music is so cool like that because, like you were saying earlier, there's so many bands from the grunge era even that are like one-hit wonders. We actually do a segment called Bands of Yore, where I dig up like old bands that broke up that no one's heard of and like do a piece about who they are and like where they went after the band.
Yeah.
And there's a band called Sheer from the 90s. It's they're like an Irish band. They kind of sound like if the Cranberries had 2 guitar players and were like a lot heavier.
Whoa,
they're fucking awesome.
Cool. I'm gonna put this in my Spotify. Sheer, like
SCHEER. Yeah, and there might be newer, but they only have 2 albums, and only their first one is on Spotify. The second one's called And Finally, and I was able to find it on YouTube, and it's got some fucking great stuff. They have a chick singer, and then there's bands like Sugartooth, and like I mentioned earlier, The Flies, that song that I dug up because it listened to your stuff. So.
But that's the thing with like a lot of those bands, like even go to like the 90s, what would be a fucking playlist on Spotify, like 90s summer vibes or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like all single tracks from single bands that are so fucking iconic. So fucking iconic. And so many of those bands just didn't have. And like that makes me wonder, is it like, did they go, okay, how do we cash in on this? Let's write a song that people get just to pay our fucking bills. Because like I can guarantee you a band like Eve 6.
Yeah.
With the 2 big fucking heavy hitters like Here's to the Night and why can't I think of their most popular song?
I would follow my pride. I would jump on the run.
Dude, they don't have to fucking write music anymore. Like off those 2 songs alone. Like hold on. Let's see here.
Yeah, there's so many bands from that era that kind of popped up for a second and went. There's a band called Sugartooth that I'm about to do a thing on that I think they just recently got back together, but they were one of those bands that signed to Geffen and they had like one killer album and really unique voice, but similar to, of music from that era. Very guitar. Let me ask you this. We had this conversation. I actually got into an argument a while ago with this guy.
Yes, let's go.
Click tracks and stuff. Because I was like, no, you got to play to a click. And he was like, no, you think Zeppelin played to a click? And then I changed my mind because someone in the comments actually was like, we were talking about iconic albums. We're like, what are the iconic albums that have come out like since the 2000s? Because there are some, but like this guy was like, a lot of it's because everything went to the grid with Pro Tools, where everything's on that, and so there's no there's no like human element. It's like so perfectly timed. Everything's so perfectly timed and clean.
Yeah.
And that's one of the qualities I liked about your stuff is it seems so much more raw.
Yeah. It's again going back to something can be two things. And when we first sat down to like, okay, let's do because I would be in one room and my drummer Dave would be in another, and we would just play the songs with no click. Through that, we would find, okay, so what can we take here in this performance we did out of all these kind of ebbs and flows? What BPM works the best?
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing too with like pop music is there has to be that sort of
consistency.
Yeah. So it's kind of a balance because like I've also done albums where I'd done like one of my first albums I ever did was like a haunted blues album, and we brought our computer out to the woods, like this super isolated cabin, and just recorded it off the floor. And I don't think you can do a band or an album like that any other way. You know, there's like some music that by putting it into a click, you're doing a disservice. A lot of like folk singers, I find like if it's a click, it can be a little repetitive because it's a story. You know, it's got to have those ebbs and flows. And that's why I'll never have a click live ever. Like I cannot, I respect it. And there's a huge skill involved with that. Like, could you imagine being a band like Lorna Shore, that kind of music is like, and to have your click run out halfway through a set or like to stop working, how fucking terrifying that would be.
Oh yeah.
So there is a skill, and I want to be sure that I say that. I'm not saying like if you have a click, you're not a musician or whatever, but
totally.
I like my favorite parts of playing shows is when shit goes wrong. You know, when someone jumps on the stage and bumps you and you lose your I love that shit. That's the shit that like I was having this conversation with my drummer today because we got a band together, a live band, and we're getting our songs ready for live shows. And I was saying that I'm like, yeah, there's no way we could do something like this to a click because for selfish reasons, I love live performances where shit goes wrong, like where shit goes off the rails. And it's like, okay, how do I recover from this? Not only that, but in that moment, you're also like, holy shit, I'm present. I'm playing a show on a stage in front of all these wonderful people. Like, this is fucking cool. Because you can, like, when you're touring, you can get into the rhythm of like, okay, now we're playing a show. Now the show's over. Now we go to the next town. Now we play a show. But to like have those moments happen and be like, yeah, this is fucking awesome. This is really cool. I think, I could never give that up.
Yeah, I think the live element is where people suffer the most from that too. Like in a studio, it's a whole new like. I couldn't imagine trying to record. And then we got in this argument because I was recording my son's band, and the drummer wouldn't play to a click. And I'm like, bro, there's a bunch of stops and starts in this song, and I don't know, like nothing matches up now. Like you have to play this to a click, or at least leave me some space to some clicks in between when you're stopping or something.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like it can be both things, but at certain times it works to your benefit, and especially when it's in a studio and you're doing a lot of like post-production stuff. Could you imagine doing that without a click? That would just be you'd fucking shoot yourself.
Yeah.
There's no way. So there has to be like, especially for a band like this, like we were super tempted to just record it off the floor, which I think would have been better had we had more, because I wrote a lot of this stuff on my own, and then I had brought in a drummer because I'm so terrible at drums. My good friend Dave, who had also drummed in the black metal project, and then he came on board and added like so many ideas and like just gave it so much life. And then I didn't have a bassist because it's like super hard to find people who want to play this kind of music who are my age, because it's like in the 30s, people have either started the family or like kind of given up on the music stuff. So then we finally found a bassist now, but I'm like, if we had those 3 or 4 months where we could play as a band together in the room, I'm sure we could have done it off the floor. But to not have like a solid lineup, like, because Josh ended up doing the bass on the album, the producer, did an amazing job. But I feel like if I had like a full band for time before going in, I'm pretty sure I would have done it just straight off the floor.
Just raw.
Yeah.
Well, and we've had this conversation before about technology where it's like, I watched this thing with Butch Vig talking about cutting tape, like cutting 2-inch tape, like snipping
what
and
the
editing.
fuck?
Like, can you? I'm like, I don't have time for that. First of all, like, but second of all, it's just a new world. It's like, and I liken it to like someone's like, it's like saying, oh, if you use digital recording, you're not really recording. If you DJ without turntables, you're not really DJ. I'm like, that's like saying, if you don't make a phone call on a rotary phone, you're not really making a phone call.
Yeah.
You know? Like, the technology's changed.
And that's the thing too. Like we were like, okay, because Josh had a reel-to-reel master machine for tape. I was like, that's perfect for 90s. Like it was still tape. Let's try and master it to tape. And it just didn't give any sort of quality that the digital master didn't have, you know? So like, I feel like that can be a detriment when you're like, no, I'm only using tape because I'm a fucking relic and I refuse to change.
Yeah.
No, like having a good balance. Again, like things can be two things. And I think a lot of people get so hung up on like,
we've always done it this way.
Yeah, like fucking who cares? And I find like most people who are like that don't really create a lot, because I feel like for you to be like, to create so many different things, you realize these rules, some rules are in place. Like when you come to studying music, there's rules in place, but you fucking break them. Yeah. You're supposed to. That's the point. Learn the foundations, then fucking go crazy.
Yeah, if everybody followed the rules, everything would sound the same.
Yes, and that happens. You know, like, and I'm sure you can think of a recent release where there's like a big album that drops. It's fucking huge, and then here come the clones. You know, you can almost hear rumbling in the fucking distance, as opposed to being inspired by this album. It's like, let's go, note for note. We're all gonna wear the same fucking hairdo. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, that to me is so crazy.
The best example of it I could think of is the post-Korn era. Like once Korn blew up, all these copycat bands came out, and we used to call them dun dun wee bands, because all the riffs were dun dun wee, dun dun.
Yes.
So yeah.
Oh man, that was another like such a wild time, and like that kind of came right after the 90s was new metal, you know, which was kind of like, what a weird fucking time. Like, Chocolate
there's a lot of great bands
huge.
From that era, but there's a lot of trash.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of good bands like Deftones,
obviously.
Deftones, Adrenaline, Around the Fur, Limp Bizkit. Like some of those songs I still like. They're good fucking songs. And Wes Borland's such a fucking creative genius. Yeah, like he's so artistic, and like how he brings.
Play with Danny Elfman, actually.
Oh my god, is that at the Sick New World tour? Because I know Danny Elfman's playing that.
Last year, Wes might be with him still, but last year I saw Danny Elfman every year does at the Hollywood Bowl like a Nightmare Before Christmas type thing.
That's so sick.
He played a bunch of like his like theme songs, like the Batman theme and the Simpsons theme and all that. But then he also played a lot of Boingo stuff too. So
cool. I would love Hollywood Bowl is such a fucking awesome venue.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. I think I saw Bright Eyes there twice.
Oh wow.
Because I went to school in LA. I went to AMDA in Hollywood, and that venue is so fucking cool. Who opened? Yolo Tango, I think, opened for him.
Oh wow.
Yeah, dude, the sound was. I get goosebumps just talking about it. Like the sound there is just incredible, and it was nighttime. They had all the fucking like twinkle lights, and I love that venue.
It's a cool spot.
Yeah.
Incubus is playing there, and I'm like,
what?
I'd love to see that, but
God damn
you're doing
it.
the Morning View album in its entirety.
That's on my fucking playlist that we were going through.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's another band. Post like they had their first couple albums are my absolute favorite. The Science and Enjoy are like, but you know they kind of changed up a little bit, and I like their stuff after that. But
the guitar tones on those fucking albums, dude, are like unreal.
He does not get enough credit, Einziger. No. He's a badass motherfucker.
And you want to talk about people who are really good at pitch shifting pedals and shit, dude? Like he's so on top of that.
Some of the stuff he was doing on the Science record is like glitch. Like it's like stuff that people are just figuring out now.
Yeah.
In other bands where I'm like, wow, this guy was like miles ahead of the curve.
Such a good band. And that's like another really cool like bands like Limp Bizkit or Deftones, where it's like every person in that band seems to have a different personality. and they kind of rub each other the wrong way and just the right way, that it creates this like beautiful just explosion of creativity. Like Deftones, like Chino is all about like new wave and like hip hop and stuff, whereas Stephen Carpenter is like fucking metal. And you put those two together, they clash. And I've read articles where they fucking clash, but that's where the beauty comes in, is that conflict that they have creates such beautiful music.
As I've gotten older, that's one of the things I've realized. The beauty of music is the combination of these like multiple energies.
Yeah,
it's like I do a lot of stuff on my own, and I love making music by myself, but it's another level when it's like with people that you vibe with, and or even clash with a little bit, like and everyone's bringing something different to the table.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's where a lot of the magic comes from, because like, could you imagine? Well, I'm sure we've all been in these projects where everyone listens to the same music. Like we all have the same favorite album. We all listen to the same music when we're at the gym or whatever. But I love being in bands where it's like you're in a band with a jazz player and a country bluegrass player and like a hip hop artist, and just see what just fucking happens. And I feel like that's what nu metal was in a lot of ways, where people are just like, I mean, there's a couple places where it was appropriated, but I feel like in most cases it was kind of like, let's see what happens when we take hip hop and metal. I don't know. Let's fucking do it. And there's some really cool shit. Like people shit on nu metal, but there's some really, excuse me, there's some really cool stuff out there. Like,
oh yeah, there's some good stuff from that era. I mean, people have called Slipknot nu metal, which I'm kind of like, I think they're influenced by it.
Yeah,
like definitely Korn influence, but I wouldn't call them new. They're definitely not nu metal.
That's like King 810. Same thing. Like a lot of people would call them nu metal, but because they had toured with Slipknot. And I just like, what would you even call it? Like, because it's got like the nu metal feel, but it's missing the like technical aspects of like, because you didn't see Corey up there fucking like busting rhymes. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't up there doing that shit.
He does some rappy stuff, like especially on that first album. He has a song where he says like something like, "Where's Chuck D when you need him?" You know, he has like some kind of like hip rappy parts, like, but it's still done in a metal voice. And when I saw them last, I saw them with Cypress Hill.
Dude,
such a killer show.
Fuck, I would love to see Cypress Hill so bad,
man. And I've seen so many rap shows, and it frustrates me to no end when they get up and they put their own CD on and just talk over it or rap over it. And Cypress still had a live drummer and a live DJ, and they were actually rapping.
Dude, I couldn't see that any other way. Their samples are like my favorite hip hop.
DJ Muggs got me into soul music. I started listening to shit like Sly Stone and James Brown and Parliament because of that first Cypress Hill record. Because I was like, where is he getting these breaks? These are fucking cool.
And it's just like, it's grim. Like that shit's grim. The album, the
third
album 4. What's the green one with the skeletons? Dude, the one track, Eyes of the Pig. It's like Eyes of the Pig.
You're talking about the one after that.
Dude, that track is fucking grim.
Yeah, a lot of their stuff is fucking crazy.
And then they have tracks like Rockstar.
Yeah.
That's got like that fucking heavy metal full band in it too, which is really cool.
Yeah, they were always one of those groups that, because I was a weed kid, you know, like all the metalheads, all the little stoner kids were like, yeah, Cypress Hill. So it was like the first hip hop I really got into.
Same, with Cypress Hill, and that kind of after that's when I branched out to like Tupac and Biggie and
Wu-Tang,
Tribe Called Quest, Wu-Tang.
Oh yeah, Tribe is
so good. My partner actually turned me on to Tribe Called Quest, and I've been a convert ever since. I was like, this is like, can you dig it? Yeah, dude.
Q-Tip is the man.
Yeah,
he's producing a lot of stuff nowadays too.
Oh, cool, good for him. He should, because he's really good at it.
Yeah, that's another legendary. There's so much hip hop itself. It's crazy to think about, but it's a relatively new genre. Like it literally started at the end of the 70s, the birth at the end of the 70s. So
yeah, it's such a cool genre. And like, even going back and like, because when you're a kid, you can appreciate it like a fucking stoner kid. Yeah, you feel the bass and you get the the rhythm of the lyrics and stuff, but it's like when you get older and you actually like pick up Tupac's lyrics and read them, you're like, fuck, dude.
Yep.
Like, this guy's a fucking poet.
I always said too, hip hop increased my vocabulary. Like listening to rap, like I'm like, what does that mean? You know, oh shit, that's a reference to this. He's like I'm a lyrical guy, so I love that shit.
Yeah, same. I'll whenever I'm about to record vocals or write vocals, I'll listen to a lot of hip hop just to get different cadences and things I would never think about, right?
Totally.
Yeah, hip hop's so fucking awesome.
Well, man, we are coming up on an hour.
Holy shit.
Yeah, this has been a great conversation, man. I love I love interviews like this because it felt natural. Like we were just chatting, you know, and the music is fucking incredible. I told Katie when I sent her a thing a couple weeks ago, and I think she just didn't get the email. So
that's what happened
before.
Yeah, because I hadn't heard back from her either. And I was like, what's going on? Like, are you okay? And then I sent her a private message on Instagram. She's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I accidentally archived. So she wasn't even getting the notifications that new messages were coming in. But I'm glad I reached out and we got this to work. And thank you for taking an interest in it.
You'll definitely have to send me the full record. I'll definitely review it on the site and everything.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And
send me are you send in the private chat and then I'll fire it off to you here before I leave my studio.
Yeah, are you guys going to be touring soon?
Yes, I want to so bad. I finally found a full lineup, which are people I'd never even seen before in my life. Like, these are people, complete strangers, who are just like, I love this fucking album.
So you wrote all the songs yourself?
Pretty much. They're down the drain. Actually, really cool story. I had come up with the first riff and the lyrics. And then remember I was telling you how we would sit when we were working on the songs. I'd be on one side and Dave was on the other. Well, Josh at the computer picked up the bass, and then we wrote that whole song in like an afternoon.
It's a great song, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a personal song about my friend who took his life. And so I wanted to like write a song that was kind of a conversation, which is why there's a key change. So like the first part of the song is a minor, that's him talking. And then the chorus is when it goes up to a major key is when I'm trying to talk to him. So there's that kind of push and pull that I really wanted to do. Like I just knew I wanted to write a song like that. And I'm so happy that it turned out that someone like yourself really liked it. So I really appreciate that, Dustin.
I appreciate it. I think it's fucking great stuff, and I'm excited to hear the full record. And one of the things, like we started Brutal Planet a couple years ago, and you know, we're all just music lovers. We really started it to get free concert tickets and like, you know, streamers and, you know,
why not
records, you know.
Then
last year I got laid off from my corporate job, and I started going like, what do I want to do? And I'm like, well, I started leaning into this live streaming thing, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I mean, I'm a musician myself, but I love like getting the chance to talk to musicians and, you know, discover new music. I've discovered a lot of new bands this year through this, yours being one of them, you know, so it's been very fulfilling for me, and I hope to
good for you, Dustin. That's important. I think like a lot of people at that point in their lives would really lean into, okay, what's going to be comfortable for me? What's going to be the less risky avenue in life to take? So I'm glad that you found something that you love and that you can pull yourself into and get something back from it. Cause like, that's really hard to find in life.
Yeah. We're not super profitable yet. Like,
no,
bucks here and there,
but it's profitable here, right?
Yeah,
it's profitable where it matters. Yeah.
I could go out and get another corporate full-time job, but I'm in my 40s and I'm like, yo, do I really want to get up and do that again every day? No, I'm too old for this shit. Like I need to do something I genuinely feel.
Yes.
And
that's so much important. Cause like, there's so many people I see who have been like trades workers their whole life. Their body is just fucking ravaged. And all they've done is work their whole life. So when they retire, they're fucking head cases because they don't know what to do. They have no interests. They have no hobbies. All they've known is work because that's all they've ever done. So I think it's super important, like, in your 40s to be like, you know what? Fuck that shit. I'm not going to fucking do that. Yeah, I might fucking have to eat Kraft dinner for a few years. But at the end of the day, if I can go to bed with a smile on my face and I got dried cheese in my mouth, then fuck it. That's better than, you know, having a fucking lobster dinner and just hating your fucking life.
Exactly. And that's where I got. It's like I climbed up the corporate ladder and I got to the point where I was like, okay, now I got this comfortable cush job. I'm like, but do I really want to do this? No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good for you, man. That's a lot of people don't get that realization. A lot of people don't even they're just scared. They don't even want to think about that, you know.
I mean, I'm still struggling, so it's but
me too. Yep.
But yeah, it's a good struggle.
Like and I wouldn't want to do anything else. Like I don't know if this is how you feel, but I would rather struggle than to be comfortable and complacent. Like I just can't imagine drifting through life like that. It's just like a fucking zombie or a ghost, you know? Like these are the things I do so I can afford shit that I don't fucking care about that adds no value to my fucking life. Like people are like, you spent how much on this album? And I'm like, well, yeah, like how much do you guys spend on new cars?
Yeah.
Like just because you think that's more important,
or ski trip,
or ski trip, or a fucking vacation in Jamaica or whatever, like that's not going to add. Like the experience of recording that album alone, like being there for over a month, was worth it. Just that alone was like, yeah, totally.
When you've got something to show for it at the end too, you got a good product. So
yeah, can't wait to do it again. Hopefully soon. That'd be awesome.
Well, man, I hope to see you guys if you get out to LA. Definitely, we'll be in touch. I'll email you, or you can email me after this, because I definitely want to hear the full record.
Yeah,
do you have anything else you want to plug, or anything else you want to say before we shut this off?
No, just love yourself. Be a good person.
Well, man, I'm so glad we got the chance to talk. You know, despite with people like Katie and a lot of I deal with a lot of these types of people, and they're fucking so flustered. So I don't blame her. Like, at least we made it happen. Yeah. Like shit happens. Like the fucking, I can only imagine how many emails she gets in a day.
Oh, dude, yeah, because she's dealing with Mayhem now too. I think Mayhem signed on with her.
Oh God.
Yeah. So
good for her.
Yeah, no, she's doing great, and like she was like the one person from Season of Mist who really believed in me and was like, because she had left Season of Mist, and I had emailed her and I was like, because I'm starting from scratch, right? Like,
yeah,
you know, going from like millions of streams to like hardly any, can be daunting. But for someone in that position to be like, I believe in you and I believe in your music, let me help you, was like, means the world to me. So she's really great.
Yeah, all these people. That's another thing, is the upside of this for me is just meeting all these great people. Like there's so many great people in this world, and the metal community and the rock community is at large. It's just
that's my favorite part of touring. My favorite part of touring is meeting people. Like that's the thing. Is like I hate people, but I love it. I love individuals. Like I love people like now where we can sit down and have a conversation and get past those surface levels of things.
Yeah.
Get into the nitty and gritty and stuff. I love that shit. I love it.
But people are stupid in large groups.
Yeah. It's the fucking cattle mentality, right?
All right, man. Well, the album comes out again November 10th, you said?
Yeah. Yeah. November 10th.
What's the name of the record?
I Hate Myself.
Okay. That's the first single too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
First single is Hate Myself, and Down the Drain is the second. And those are both on Spotify. Go listen to those.
Yeah.
And Roger, let's talk again, man. When you guys are promoting a tour, or when you guys have something to push, like please come back through and talk to me again.
I would love that. Thanks, Dustin.
All right, man.
All right.
We can talk a little bit after the stream too, after I run this outro, if you want to hang out for a second.
Sure, that'd be awesome.
All right, man. Brutal Planet, check out G.U.S.H on Spotify when they come to your town. The whole record's out November 10th, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.